All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining our April Florida Broker Roundtable on Building Your Personal Brand, hosted by Robert Milligan. Before we begin, I want to remind you all that Allison James has proudly partnered with Conversion. Check out our FAQs page, which has all of the information about what's included within the KV Core platform. You can access the FAQs page directly from the AJI University dashboard by clicking right here. With that being said, I would now like to pass it over to Robert. Good morning, Robert.
Morning, Tori. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here. I definitely want to do my best to get you some good information. And if you would like to interject anything in any given time on the GoToWebinar, if you have any questions or anything, just feel free to interrupt. And Tori, if you see something, feel free to stop me. And I definitely want to have this be as interactive as possible. But I think this is an interesting topic because, I think a lot of realtors have a lot of ego associated with their practice, and I see some people that are branding themselves properly, or maybe doing things that realtors think is good, but it's more serving their own ego than it is actually creating a brand in the marketplace and helping encourage more business. So when I'm thinking about those things, I like to ask myself, what is a brand? Why is it as important to us as maybe we think that it is, I'm sorry. And why do customers ultimately choose us? Because sometimes if you ask yourself good questions, you get good answers. And so again, what is a brand? Why is it important? And is it really as important as most people think that it is? So in my mind, I think that spending too much energy on branding yourself as a newer agent is probably not the best use of your time. And the reason I would say that is because you're ultimately coming into this business to fill orders. And if you're not filling orders or spending, if you're spending your time doing things other than filling orders, like, blogging or building a website or, working on your brand, you're basically wasting your time, because I think that your brand is something that you develop as you go. And you don't even really know exactly what your brand is until you've had a chance to just figure it out a little bit and experiment with different things and see what about the market resonates most with you. And so I'm not saying that it's not important to have a brand, but I think it's generally a mistake to come in as a brand new agent and then start fixating on, what is my brand? What do I need it to be? How am I going to look and feel? And I think that it generally makes more sense to just, put your head down, get into the open houses, work your leads, fill orders, and start actually experiencing some success and some revenue. And then, usually then it starts to make more sense what your brand ultimately should be. But if you think about, what is the purpose of your brand ultimately? And, again, I'm not saying it's not important to have a brand, but, it's just important to kind of keep not put the cart before the horse. But I think that the main reason that you're going to want to have a brand ultimately is because every business has momentum to operate. And I would say that that's especially so with sales. So, I think that you could probably all think of a time that you had to fight really hard to get momentum started and fight really hard to make a deal happen. And then, after you fought for a little while, then, at times, not always, but sometimes things come really easily to you. And it seems like, everything that you touch just works out and deals are clicking. And, so what you're experiencing there is momentum. And I think that your brand, if done properly, it's ultimately there. And what it's most useful for is to support and facilitate consistent momentum, because what you want to do over time ideally is not have to fight so hard over and over again to to create more deals and more revenue. And what I like to think of it is kind of a treadmill. At some point in this business, you want it to get a little bit easier, you want to have referrals, and you want to be able to jump off the treadmill for a little while here and there and catch your breath, and then hopefully still have a decent business to come back to after you've gone on vacation or something along those lines. So if you think about it that way, what's the whole point of having a brand to begin with? I think it's to help you create momentum and actually have a business. But before that, you actually need to create your business, and you just need to be doing as many deals as you can do. So so in thinking of that, we want to create momentum, we want to build a business. So I think that it makes sense to stop and think a little bit about why customers choose us to begin with. And I think that sometimes customers choose us, because the brand is part of the reason. But I would also argue that the most critical reason a customer usually hires us is because they believe that we're competent and we're in a better position than our peers, than our competition, to focus on them and to help them achieve their goals. So it really is nothing more than that. And the reason I say that is because I do have newer agents that are, new to the industry that win listings over our local brand name agents all the time, people with big track records, people with a lot of success. And it's primarily because I've coached our newer realtors to let the customer know that, yes, they don't have a giant track record, and I encourage them to be authentic about that, but just let them know they're connected to people who can help them get all the answers that they need right away. And most importantly, let the customer know that they soon will have an impressive track record and they soon will be a brand name agent, but the only way for them to achieve that is by selling their house. And so that way the customer feels like they have someone who is just as competent as the name brand agent, but they also have somebody that has a lot more time, energy, and passion to devote to making that sale happen. Because, ultimately the reason a customer chooses us is not because we portray that we're important. As a matter of fact, that's really off-putting. Most people, don't appreciate or enjoy somebody that comes around and tells them how important that they are, or how many sales that they've had in the past, or how many sales Allison James or any other brokerage has had in the past, because nobody really nobody really cares about that so much as they care that you're the right person that has the proper amount of time and energy to devote to helping them solve their problem, which in this case is just simply selling their house. And the same is actually true for on the buyer side too. I mean, buyers just want to feel like you're the right person, that that they want to feel like they are your only customer, and you have nothing else in your entire life to be working on than helping them achieve whatever their goal is and solving whatever that problem is. So I think if you think about it that way, I mean, part of your brand to start with could be the fact that you're new. And again, I really don't think that there's any shame in that. I think if you show up with a lot of passion and energy, and you let customers know that, yes, I'm new, but soon I'm going to be a dominant force in this market, and the only way for me to achieve that is by selling your house. Sometimes that's really refreshing to a customer, rather than somebody who comes in and tells them how much they've done and how much they've sold and how comfortable they are, because they don't really need revenue the same way that they did earlier in their career. So, that message, if you figure out a way to put that in your own words, that will definitely resonate with some customers. So in terms of branding yourself, though, I think that what you should generally be asking yourself is, what are you known for, or what would you like to be known for? Because I think a proper amount of time to truly be branded would be at least 2 or 3 years. And, I'm not copying this from anybody. I'm not getting this material from anywhere. These are just my own thoughts that I would, happily have some of you disagree with, but these are just observations I've made, that it seems like it's about a 2 or 3 year consistent effort to really have a solid brand that sticks, and it takes a lot of intentional effort and forethought to be the architect of that brand. And there's a lot of different things that you can brand yourself surrounding. You can brand yourself about, relating to something that's personal about you, or you could build your brand, which my preference actually would be to brand yourself around the niche of real estate that you serve. And there's no right or wrong answers. I've seen very successful brands be built upon something personally about the individual agent, and I've also seen very successful brands be built around the type of real estate that agent serves. So, it's just there's no wrong answer. I've seen success both ways, but it's just a matter of picking out which seems more realistic and resonates more with you. So a personal descriptive brand, I would say, would be something that you create, something along the lines like we have an agent in the Tallahassee area. Patty Wilson's up there, and she years ago began branding the Purple Door team, and she does a very great job of branding that in her market. It's very successful. She has a radio show. So the Purple Door team is a known thing in that market, and that's obviously something personal as it relates to her that she's done a good job branding, and it is very well known in the community. And another example would be maybe somebody who is known for always wearing a particular type of color or article of clothing, such as a scarf, or maybe you're the sort of person you'll wear a bow tie every day. I even knew a realtor in the Punta Gorda area a few years back. He always wore a top hat, which to me it was kind of silly, and I would not do that, but he was definitely well known as the top hat realtor. So, I mean, like I said, there's no right or wrong answer, and as much as you want to put yourself out there and be a certain thing, then, it definitely was memorable, because, the one thing that you don't want to be is just like everybody else. So if you can, articulate something about your service or about the real estate that you serve, or, if you have to wear a top hat every day, he definitely wasn't the same as everyone else, and that did seem to support his business. So, so those would be some examples about ways to brand yourself as a person. And like I said, there's not really any right or wrong answer, but my preference is to build a brand around a type of real estate niche that you serve. And for me, for instance, over the years, I've primarily built my brand around waterfront real estate, because it's something I truly, truly love. I grew up on the water locally in my market. I know all the bridge heights and water depths called of, for boaters, if they're wondering how large of a boat they can fit in any neighborhood, I know. If they want to know what kind of fish you can catch in any particular area of the bay, I know. So this is something for me, it's my recreation and my hobby. I love the water, and I'm really familiar with all the nuances surrounding waterfront real estate, because a lot of times there's docks that are encroaching, from a neighbor's property, or, there's submerged property rights, and there's just a lot of interesting, goofy stuff and seawalls and stuff like that with waterfront real estate. So, those are things that I'm very well aware of and understanding of, and so I've always kind of branded myself specifically relating to waterfront real estate. Another particular niche that you could serve would be a particular neighborhood, a section of town in our market in Sarasota, and every location is going to be a little different, but we have very well-defined niches of real estate in the Sarasota area. We have a mainland neighborhood called West of the Trail that has got about 2,000 houses that there's a lot of specialists. Then we have the barrier islands like Siesta Key or Longboat Key, which are actually two very, very different islands, and two totally different groups of realtors for the most part that work those islands. So those are examples of particular neighborhoods or areas of town. And another particular niche that you could focus on would be a type of housing, such as in Sarasota we have downtown high-rise condos. And I actually had a conversation with one of our realtors on my team here in the Sarasota area. His name's Garrett Yankee, and he decided that he wants to start positioning himself to be known for downtown high-rise condos. And so we started kind of coming up with a little bit of a plan for him to put some intentional effort into that. And as a newer agent, if this hopefully is helpful to, maybe you can relate to this depending on what position in your career that you're on. But as a newer agent, I just encouraged him to obviously do all the deals that he can that fall in his lap, to not be so focused on building that brand that he's turning away good business. Because as a newer agent, you just need to build momentum, and you just need to create experience and, create your volume, build that volume level up, because that's also an important metric that more and more people are watching through Zillow and even through the MLS to see, how much volume that you've sold to demonstrate success. So I told him, just, don't turn anything down, but, in the meantime, why don't you start, posting information on your Facebook page and on Instagram and on all your social media. And he happens to have a good attention span for creating these vlogs about different things on YouTube. And I said, why don't you start vlogging whenever you're in a high-rise condo and start talking about the amenities of the building, and start really portraying yourself as being an expert in that field, and really, nerding out on all the details of what's available in each condo and how much all the maintenance fees and association fees, and just know everything there is to know about that particular niche. And so he started on that journey, and I told him realistically that's probably about a 2-year process at a minimum to just consistently put information out there about all the downtown condo options that we have and all the nuances and information about each of the condos, and just on social, be posting stuff that with pictures of the high rises, maybe of himself, like selfies with the high rises in the background, stuff like that. And so we're starting to consistently do that. And so I just thought I'd share that story because maybe that would resonate with somebody here that has the same kind of questions and wondering where to start. And so Another way to think about this is rather than the type of real estate that you're always dealing with, another way to approach it is maybe thinking about the customers that you serve. Who is it that you're generally working with? Is there a particular kind of a community that you resonate with? Because I've actually, over the years, I've seen some realtors who advertise themselves as a gay realtor to the LGBT community. I've seen that work really well for a lot of realtors. I've also seen some realtors who are like maybe former golf pros, and they advertise to golfers and golf course communities, and they have ads, in the clubhouse and private golf clubs, stuff like that. Same thing with tennis, same thing with boaters or any other hobby, really. So, that's another way to maybe think about, deconstructing who is it that I'm ultimately hoping to attract, who is my tribe, so to speak, that you could see yourself, working with on a repeat regular basis. And I think too, if you deconstruct the numbers, which is my favorite thing to do about this business, because it's kind of easy to do, any group or farm, so to speak, of properties, it seems like that, your farm area should be about 2,000 units, or your database should have at least 2,000 people in it. Because if you think about it just from a numbers perspective, I think if you have that many opportunities and you have 2,000 units or houses in your farm area, or you've got at least 2,000 people in your database, there's always going to be a reasonable amount of people that are in transition, or people that are connected to somebody that's in transition that's needing to buy or sell a house. So so that kind of, I hope, gives you a little bit of a metric of how big your brand or your farm should be trying to reach. So excuse me here, I got a fire alarm.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll be all right. But let me step outside real quick. So that's an Alice and James first.
Yeah, I've never had that one happen before.
Sorry about that, guys. I think we're all right now. So no cause for alarm. Nobody's going to perish. But basically, so those are some of my thoughts. It's easy also to think about what what you want and what you don't want. The main thing that you don't want is you don't want to be the same as everybody else. I think that the most important thing, and what I was helping my pal Garrett with, was consistency, authenticity, and uniqueness. Just make sure that whatever it is that you decide to do, don't jump around, from month to month with a new idea, or a big website overhaul, or whatever it is. You need to make a plan, stick to the plan, and whatever phase you are in your business right now, I think you just need to own it and be authentic with it. I think the biggest mistake a newer agent can make is try to hide the fact that they're not new. I think that there's something really special about somebody's first year or two in the industry, where they just have more passion and energy and enthusiasm, and they're excited for everything in this business. And I spend a lot of time trying to help our agents that are more seasoned recapture that energy. So be authentic with whatever it is that you're part of your career that you're in, and just be unique, because nobody's looking for the same as somebody else. Nobody needs another, I've got name brand agents, I could name names in my market, but nobody needs another one of them. They need the best version of you. So just have to be yourself. And that's basically the main thoughts that I had for you on personal branding. I think that if you want to talk about specific steps, I think it's generally a smart idea to register your own name as a domain name. And I think it's also smart generally to build your own name as the brand, rather than creating a unique identifier. And I've seen it work for some people over time, like the example I had with the Purple Door team. That obviously is working for them, and that so that would have been a mistake to not do that. But I've also seen agents who try to create a unique identifier like that, and then it just doesn't seem to work as well as they would have hoped, and they probably should have just branded their name, because they're always going to have their name. So register a domain name for yourself. Be professional in your appearance. I mean, that's part of my my little shtick around town, is that I always try to dress reasonably presentable. So if I ever showed up somewhere in a t-shirt, I think people would be shocked. I don't even know if they'd recognize me. so whatever it is, though, just figure out who you are, be authentic, and be consistent with that. And whatever it is that you're trying to position yourself for, we can go over some questions now, or have independent conversations, whatever you'd like. But that's my main thoughts for now, Tori. And if anybody has any comments or questions, I'd be happy to field a few.
I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, but if they do have questions, they do know how to get a hold of you, so they can always email you later on.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We had a great turnout today. And thank you, Robert, for sharing your wealth of information and knowledge during another great broker roundtable. I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Robert.
Bye.